And it's great to meet all of you because, like Startup Life, I may be looking for a job tomorrow. So thank you for hearing our story. So I have around 20 minutes to talk, and then I think another 15 to 20 minutes for questions. So I won't take too long. But I do want to give a bit of my background because it's very interesting when you talk to a bunch of entrepreneurs. We all have very, very interesting stories, and I thank you for letting me share mine. So I grew up in Hong Kong. Me and the other two co-founders of Label Inside also grew up in Hong Kong. And the thing with Hong Kong, especially at the time when we grew up, when it was a British colony, was that when you go to university or college, you either go to the US, the UK, or Australia. I came to the US, went to Champaign-Urbana, a great engineering school. Wow, it was different from Hong Kong, going to a small college town from Hong Kong. It was exciting. I did a lot of the cool things that I saw on TV that people do in American universities. But I longed to move to a bigger city. Chicago was the closest. And I transferred to DePaul and the computer science department. And I was always involved in technology, was downtown, and that was great. I felt much more at home in a larger city. The thing that I've always wanted, and I think you'll find this with many entrepreneurs, is you've always wanted to do your own thing. And every time you went to a big company or got caught up in those kind of things, you realize that it's not really about starting a company to be rich. And to be clear, I want to be very rich, but that's not why people start a company. And if you want to make money, I would highly advise against not being an entrepreneur. That's not the reason to be an entrepreneur. I think most of us will tell you we're not very rich, and very few get great exits, and they're ridiculously rich. I get that, but most of us are not. And so I knew at a very early age, and I've really only worked for a large company. It was UBS Investment Bank for 8 months, and I left the day after my bonus, which I learned afterwards that that's pretty common. I just knew that that's not what I wanted. So I've been doing my own thing since college. I grew up in my career grew up in the late 90s, so I was part of the dot-com boom. And so leaving college, being a technical person, I started a consulting company with a few of my friends. It was amazing. I think within 2 years, we got up to 400 consultants with great revenue. I was like 21 or 22, and I thought I was going to be super rich. Then the dot-com bust happened. We lost 200 consultants in 2 months. That was really hard, like letting go of 200 consultants, of which a good 50 I knew really well. That was very painful, and I realized, oh, this is how the world is. It's really difficult. I left that company because the CEO and I wanted to go different directions, was bought out of that, so I had a little bit of money so I didn't have to get a real job, and continued consulting. I was always in technology. I was always about bringing the web-enabled technology to the older systems. So a lot of my customers were like UBS Investment Bank, like Motorola, Fortune 500 companies. And as I developed more into that, I realized that to make more money, it's better to go the more management consulting route. It's great money, and you just say what you want, what you think they should do, and then you go away, and they pay you a lot of money. It was the least satisfying. So I was like, there has to be something more, and I don't want to do consulting anymore, and I don't want to grow a consulting company. So going back to the fact that I grew up in Hong Kong, in 2007, my very good childhood friend, who I've known for 5 years, since I was 5 years old, and his name's Anton Xavier, he was getting married, and I hadn't seen him for 10 years. And so I said, hey, let's do our bachelor party in Hong Kong. This is where we all grew up, and so we can all meet up there, and we did. And he was getting married in France. His wife, current wife, she was French, and they were getting married in Provence, south of France. Very beautiful area. So I remember talking to him about a family issue that he had, and a small project that they had. Basically, his father was they had a family trip. They were traveling in Europe, and they were living in Australia at the time, and had a health issue. Coming back, like many of our parents and us soon, we'll be told that we need to change our lifestyle. One of the big things was how he was, what he was eating. specifically, he had to avoid certain ingredients, and looking around the internet at the time, this is really around 2003 or 2004, he found it very difficult to find the foods that work. So Anton's brother, Dagan, who was with him, who, by the way, hasn't had any job except working for us for the last 10 years, he went to the store, looked at all the products, had a really high-tech dictaphone that he would talk into, go back to home and fill out an Excel spreadsheet. Around 2005, they got this really high-tech 5-megapixel cameras and decided to take photos, then go home and do all the work. And so that's how it started, just to help their dad. Once they collected enough data around the food that their dad wanted, they realized that, hey, let's collect more food. And in Australia, there are really only two big retailers, well, two retailers. I think one's Coles and Woolworths, I think that's what it is. And so they collected all that data, and they got kicked out of retail stores a lot because, you know, they get suspicious if you're just standing there not buying stuff and taking pictures of products. And so the retailer said, wow, I've never seen this kind of information before. Do you think you can share this with us? So they started realizing that, hey, this is much more than just a little family project. So come 2007, they were still struggling, and my friend Anton was getting married. He was moving to France. And I was very intrigued by this, as I told you, my background, and I really wanted to do something of value. And we decided that you know, doing it in the United States was a much larger market, and we can achieve much greater impact. And of course, who wouldn't want to have this data? And just to understand what our data is especially at that time, it's a lot more now, but really it's around looking at everything on the label, ingredients, nutrients, even health claims like hint of salt, for example. And it's about taking that and understanding what it is, regardless of what the ingredients are, what the health claims are. We could take that data, break it down, and then create what we call attributes. So we can look at all products that are gluten-free based on ingredients, regardless of what they say or how they market it. We can tell you what's really heart healthy based on the product category it is at. For example, soy sauce has, well, soy sauce is not a good thing, but there are many things that have very low sugar but have very high sodium, and you're not allowed to make health claims on it and say it's heart healthy, or it has even low sugar if it's not a healthy product. And we really help brands understand that, as well as compare it to other brands within categories. And so it's really granular data, and we thought, of course, absolutely, the industry is going to want it. So we incorporated in February 2008. I was living in Chicago suburb at that time, in February 6, 2008, and we thought, we're going to be rich, everyone's going to love this data, and wow, how wrong we were. Really, we would go around to the industry, we'd go around to data players, we'd go around to brands, we'd go around to retailers, and they would all be fascinated. They would all take the meeting, and they would all look at what we did, and they'd all ask a lot of questions, and then they would say, you know, it's really cool what you're doing, it's really interesting. However, it really doesn't have much value. We only want 10 attributes. We don't need your thousands of attributes. We just need to know, is it gluten-free, is it organic, is it non-GMO, you know, those kind of, is it whole grain, those kind of things. Why do we need all of these kind of things? So come the end of 2009, I had used up a lot of my savings. We were about to shut down. My wife, it's good to have a wife who has a career. She's a physician. And we had 3 kids at the time. She's a physician from St. Louis, and she got a job here. And it was either stay in St. Louis and I get a real job, stay in Chicago and I get a real job, or move to St. Louis, and so I moved to St. Louis. Just so you know, I never even heard of St. Louis when I was growing up in Hong Kong, so it was, you know, I told you about my story, always wanted to be in a big city, but hopefully at the end you'll realize how St. Louis is my home and I love it. So we moved, her parents were also here, so that helped a lot with the kids. And I was just living out of the basement. Come end of 2009, we're about to go out of business, and I was like, damn, I moved to St. Louis and I still have to get a real job. So we decided to put everything out there on the web, and then a week later, the FDA contacts us because they wanted to do a study. And basically what had happened is in 2006, they had passed a trans fat law where you have to show trans fat on the nutrients facts panel. However, there was a loophole, a caveat, whatever you want to call it, or a convenient thing that if it's under half a gram of trans fat, you can round down to 0. But the problem is, anyone who was close to it would get under half a gram and round it down to 0, so it would say 0 grams of trans fat. But when you look at the ingredients, like when you see things like partially hydrogenated soybean or anything that says hydrogenated, there is trans fat in the product. The FDA knew this, but they didn't really have that data. And they really do have the data now because of us, but they didn't have all these products, and they would send interns around the DC, Maryland area to look at, to bring products back to the office for them to look at. And they would notice that, and they said, well, you said that you analyze all these ingredients. Can we give you around 8,000 products, and can you tell us how many of them have trans fat in them? And we'll pay you $2,500. And we're like, wow, money, that's really good. And so we said, yeah, sure. They gave us the products, and we said, what are those 15 ingredients? And they gave us a list of 15 ingredients, and we said, oh wow, those are represented 250 different ways on the label. They said, exactly, this is taking us forever. Can you do this analysis for us and then come back 2 weeks later? So we took that data, we loaded it into our system, and literally, I mean, it took an hour or two because we weren't lying, we did have that system. And then we called them the next day saying, hey, we've got your results, do you want to see it? And there were 17% of those products had trans fat, even though they were listed at 0 grams of trans fat. And they said, wow, we knew that, thank you so much. But guess what, we need to do more analyses like this, and we can't be doing one-off projects. So let's do an enterprise contract. And then a very, very quick, 10 months later, we had closed a 5-year, multi-million-dollar contract with the FDA that kept us in business, and that was awesome. I would say that's when we were real. We didn't have a lot of money, but at least we could continue to pay to get our data processed and provide services to the FDA. But it did do 3 things. The first thing is, like I said, it gave us money so we could continue our hobby. 2, all the people who said, you know, I don't think there's much value in what you do, suddenly changed their mind because they knew that the FDA was looking at the data in the way that we were, and they wanted to see it too across the industry. And 3, the FDA was really rough on us. My co-founder, Dagan Xavier, who is really the architect of how we look at our data, was really beaten up many, many times, and sometimes still gets beaten up by the FDA. They have 200 scientists looking at the data, and they need it to be right, and they need our analysis to be right. That is still a relationship that, though hard, we cherish and leverage today because it really gives us a competitive edge. That being said, our only customer was the FDA, and we weren't really getting anywhere. So in 2012, Anton, my co-founder, emails me. There was an article on TechCrunch in January saying, there's this business plan competition called Arch Grants in St. Louis. Aren't you in St. Louis? I said, yes. Why don't we apply for it? It gives you $50,000 and it's equity free. And we're already in St. Louis, so why don't you do that? We said, oh, okay. So we applied, and like most of these business plan competitions, you never think you're gonna win. And we were one of the 12 or 15 in the inaugural class that won. And that was great. We got $50,000, and one of the conditions was, you need to move your office downtown. Well, I was in the basement of my in-laws at that time. And so I said, sure, I'll move it there. For $200 a month for an office, that's great. We were in the old, the Macy's building, the Railway Exchange building, before it moved to the much nicer T-Rex off Washington Avenue right now. And moved there, and I remember going in there, putting down my laptop, calling, Skyping Anton and Dagan saying, I'm here, what am I supposed to do? This is no different than my basement. And I remember thinking like that. But it was different. Winning an Arch Grant suddenly brought all the support out of the woodwork. We were treated like we had a real idea. We were treated like, you know, we could go somewhere. We were treated as if we were about to become a big company. And that treatment really changes how you look at things. I was amazed at that point at the civic pride that St. Louisans have. Listening to them, understanding that they really want their community to thrive, they want the downtown area to grow, they want the whole region to grow. That was amazing, and they would do whatever they can to help you, introduce you. And I think more than anything else, that was the biggest boon that we got from winning an Arch Grant. So much so, I mean, I'll continue the story. We got the Arch Grant on June 1st of 2012. In September 18th of 2012, we got another 50,000 from Capital Innovators, who Matt talked about as one of the most successful accelerators of the last years in the US. That was great. In March 9th of 2013, we got our first real money. It was 600,000 seed fund led by Cultivation Capital, once again a St. Louis-based VC firm. That furthered our growth. And you know, one thing that people should understand, there is nothing more economically beneficial to a region than investing in startups, because we don't hoard the money. I know a lot of big companies, when they make profits, they take care of making sure they're I don't know the nice way to say, fiscally prudent. We spend the money because we have a dream and we need to spend it, and oftentimes we spend it on people, and we do, and that's what we did. And we continue to grow, continue to make success. As a startup, as a venture-backed startup, we look more at growth than actually pulling a profit, and our investors really like that. Sometimes that's very difficult as a businessman to deal with, but that's what we signed up for. So we continued our growth. In October of 2014, we raised another 10 million led by KPMG Capital, and today we're in the middle of raising our Series C. And it's really about I don't know the best way to say it. It's really about making sure that you have enough capital to reach your dreams. We've hired a professional CEO who's been a CEO of public companies before, and he's really teaching us how to really scale a company. I think the biggest lesson I learned is, as an entrepreneur, is you can't do everything yourself. You may have the passion, you may have the desire, but you definitely don't have the ability, and you no way have the time to do everything you need. And the key is to get really good people, hire a really good team from top to bottom, because they will go the extra mile for you. And you know, being in the St. Louis community, having the ability to have all people like you support us through this is what everyone wants to be part of. That's really what we want to be part of. And I think hopefully when there's a big exit in the St. Louis area, we'll all realize that this is a great thing we're doing here, and I'm really glad to do my little part of it. Thank you.